So since I am on vacation right now, I figured now is as good a time as any to go look back at some recent NU tournaments and see in the finals what we can find that was just fun battling. And because NU Classic ran recently, because I love Gen 3 NU, y'all know it's my favorite bastion of NU, I thought now's as good a time as any to go back, look at the finals of the ADV NU Cup between Bughouse and Real FV. Bughouse, longtime ADV player, old Gens player in general. Real FV, one of the best current ADV NU players. So, series was really fun. I wanted to look it over with y'all today. And of course, little reminder before we do, I'm on my way to hitting 10k by the end of this year, man. 10k subs, it's happening. And like, 50% of y'all are still not subscribed. So, go down right there, fix that. Leave a comment while you're down there. Tell me what your favorite old gen of NU is to play. As I said, I love ADV NU, but I also like Sun and Moon NU. And if you haven't played any old gens of NU, hey, what's one you'd be interested in playing? So, since it's Gen 3, there's no team preview, but there is a turn 1 where I could talk about still what they lead with. Octillery being the one that I want to talk about a little bit here. Because Octillery is, I still think, somehow one of the most slept on mons in this tier, particularly with the lead set. Because a lot of it comes down to just lead matchup. There's just no preview, lead matters a lot more in this game because you can't pick your lead based on the opposing person's team. You're looking to pick a lead that's just good as a lead. And Octillery, in my view, is maybe the best lead. Not the best, but one of the best, like top 3. Because its matchup against other leads is always so good. The only mon that I think holds it back as a lead is, unfortunately, the best lead, which is Glalie. Because you can run into light screen very, very easily on lead Glalie. And if Glalie sets up light screen, a lot of the time, it will be able to get 3 spikes and say, haha. Or get a spike up and then still be at plenty of HP to justify explosion at, you know, whatever time it wants to go for. It really doesn't feel pressured. So it's a matchup where you don't have a lot of great success, but other matchups like Chan, it's pretty even. Other bulky water types, it's pretty even. And then, of course, we talk about fire types, which are pretty common. Torkoal, Flareon. Easy win there. Sudowoodo, it's an easy win. Metang, it's an easy win as well. There's just typically a lot of matchups that Octillery either obliterates from the lead or just has a nice time in. And, of course, the counterpoint would be, okay, so why run Octillery over, like, Wailord, which is a better Pokemon? A lot of it comes down to T-Wave. T-Wave can let you cheese past some other matchups that maybe Wailord just has to hope it can brute force its way through. So as we see, since Chan's maybe a bit more of a neutral matchup, we do see the switch. He also may have just not wanted a T-Wave on his Chan too early. So Kecleon comes out, and unfortunately for Bughouse, Kecleon plus bulky water type is actually one of the best ways of neutralizing Octillery, especially with it being toxic on Kecleon. And yeah, this is just kind of unfortunate. He's still going to get a lot of chip. This is not to say that this Octillery will do nothing, but instead of picking up a KO like it often does, also, I just want to pause. I have no clue what this thing's item is. Because this often runs Lumberry as a lead. I see no lefties. I didn't see this Toxic get cleansed. Lumberry Kecleon would have actually been so incredible too, because he would have gotten to Fire Blast this, change it to a fire type, and instead of being poisoned and taking all this chip damage over the turns, you would have just had Surf to obliterate it. So I don't know what's going on here. It's Charcoal. But instead of being able to KO Mon, he's just instead going to get a lot of chip. Very good full pair there to get, though. It means you just get more chip on Kecleon. That might matter for later on. And so now we see Plusle come out. And this is where we see maybe a little bit, I don't want to call it unique Plusle sets, but stuff that deviates from the standard, like, sub-baton pass with maybe sometimes a Pataya Berry, as they both exchange a status. And then Bughouse, since he got Para off, he can end up avoiding a speed tie, just Encore locks into Toxic, go to his Steel type, because, or Haunter, I guess, whatever blocks Toxic. Metang ends up being what he goes to. Hitmonchan comes out because Evie feels like that probably covers most possible mons. And then he eats a mash. Now here, boom. And you might be wondering, Rabia, why did he boom? Why boom like that? Because Metang looks kind of decent still. Like, it could help check the Kecleon. It's still good into the Hitmonchan. It could boom maybe later on this instead. You help check the plus a little bit. Why boom? So, the logic, right? You gotta look at FV's team. Think about what the last one probably is, because that's also potentially scary. What if he went for a ghost type there? Well, in my view, I think it's pretty clear this last one's going to be a Chimecho. which it does end up being. FV needs a few things on that team maybe shored up. I think the Pupitar matchup is a little bad because there's just... It literally gets to Earthquake whenever it wants, bro. Like, even if it's not necessarily a free DD setup angle because of the Wailord and potential Mach Punch Hitmonchan, you're not going to need a lot of chip on this Mon to put it in range. And even something like Artillery plus Pupitar would work incredibly well for that idea too, right? Artillery being able to weaken the whale, Pupitar, and then later on, maybe after some extra spikes chip, just pops it with EQ. So, Chimecho helps versus that. It gives you a little bit of extra insurance if you're Reflect Chime especially. You still also need like a fighting check. Something like an opposing just offensive Hitmonchan, I'm letting you know right now, it is running these guys down. And so Sableye maybe could work, but it's a little bit awkward because it doesn't really fill out the holes you really want, in my view. It gives you a lot of good stuff still, but Chime ends up giving you the overall coverage of like everything from like fighting types to ground type moves to even normal types. You might want Torkoal weakened because it's just such a good physical wall that Bughouse Booming kind of lets you in on a lot of possibilities. Now, another option that's actually what Bughouse ends up being here is Kingler. So he goes into the Kingler. Not yet, but Kingler's another option. So SD Flail Kingler, a very potent sweeper if you can get it going. Torkoal could stand in the way of it. Also just makes it a little bit awkward to look for boosting turns. Because, I mean, it's just going to boom on you or maybe have HP Grass. Getting this Mon weakened just helps so much. And now we do see Spike go up here, and I think Bughouse maybe gets a little bit ambitious here. Goes for the boom very quickly. I don't know if you needed to kill the Hitmonchan, but that also kind of lets you in on why, you know, it kind of clues you in on this being Kingler last. Because if he's going for boom on Chan, he's also trying to get rid of the Mach Punch sweeper. So, unfortunately, FV does have a commanding lead by that point in the game. He can just always sack his Torkoal, and he feels like he's in a good spot. And, I mean, from here, it's a little bit awkward for Bughouse to win. Kingler's not really in a position to do much, because there's just plenty of counterplay around. It also just eats this HP Electric right to the dome. Plusle's probably never winning because it's toxic, and then your last one's Chimecho. Chimecho's gonna have to deal with, like, boom here, potentially. Probably not, because it's stall, but might have to do a boom there. This could be toxic, I guess, although there's no way you're mono hidden power dark or electric, right? You're just not that. This has toxic. This is toxic, probably Encore. It's kind of wraps for real FV. It's kind of wraps. So, FV goes to his Plusle here, because he can just always T-Bolt. He ends up actually doubling, though. Just maybe trying to bait out a T-Wave instead of a T-Bolt from Bughouse, and just as a result waste another turn of the Plusle. So he's able to guarantee. It's kind of an arbitrary turn there. It didn't really matter what he did. But now as he goes back to Kecleon, it's just going to throw off a Toxic on the Chime. And now there are actually chances for Bughouse to win still, I would argue. Especially with Plusle having not just been sent out immediately, it kind of makes me think he's not going to be Encore. He might be like Toxic with Sub. He could be like Sub Pass Toxic T-Bolt, or like Toxic Protect 2 attacks. But presumably here, Bughouse was not, what's it called? Heal Bell. I think he probably would have tried getting one off and then going for a crit, but didn't happen, and FE takes game 1. Now game 2, which is funny, I had to switch the order of the games because the winner ended up posting them in a bit of an odd order. So here's game 2. And when you lose game 1, sometimes you just have to copy what your opponent did. So Bughouse this time, he's got the Kecleon lead. Sudowoodo lead from Real FV. Mon that I do also kind of like as a lead, just because if you run into someone who loves spamming fire types, Sudowoodo is one of the few that's not like rolled by potential HP grass coverage. Now that doesn't matter as much anymore, because you do see a lot of Flareon, for example, the most common fire type. It's running more HP electric nowadays to hit Pelipper, which is picked up in popularity, but it's still kind of there. So also, literally, look at that, Wailord and Kecleon. So he saw what was used so much, he loved it that much, he decided to take both of them. So now we get double Glalie, and either Bughouse has more speed or is just the best Glalie ever, because he wins every single speed tie, or just outspeeds every turn. And now we see, again, Real FV thinking a boom's possible. Bughouse knowing a boom is obvious, so he doesn't go for it, he EQs. Now the Tropius comes out here, and what's nice here, and again, maybe the boom happens because you're just like, oh, well, got my spikes, I may as well boom on something on their team. So, this also confirms, by the way, that this is offensive Glalie, just the damage it did to Sudowoodo. Some sort of offensive variant. And since the Tropius comes out there, FE is then going to double back into a Sudowoodo here. But because Bughouse knows that that's a little bit too obvious a boom fodder, and because Tropius is just very unthreatening, he's able to go for Shadow Ball there and just feel very safe about it. So now Bughouse, once he doesn't feel like going for the boom here, or even going for EQ chip, he'd rather save the boom for later. So he goes to his Wailord, and he's able to get a rest off here very, very nicely. He would have lived in EQ, and of course, if Metang went for boom, he does not care. Like, he's happy with that. So Wailord is back, and now he's just able to roar. He's able to get very good sleep talks as well here, which is pretty nice for him. He keeps the Wailord in 2 versus the Metang, which is very powerful. Didn't care about a potential explosion there. He just felt good about it. And he keeps getting great roars. And NFV makes a very funny play here. He sword stances with Tropius, thinking that this Wailord would switch, but I have news for you. Wailord does not care about your stupid Tropius. So, now we see a whale of FV's boom, because he's noticed it. He's like, oh god, this Wailord's a menace. So, he decides pick that one off with his Haunter and his own Wailord. Now the Glalie comes back out from Bughouse. And even if he's offensive Glalie, he's still going to tank a hit from the Haunter just fine. So he Shadow Balls Metang as it comes out. EQ is pretty free for Bughouse here. So he's able to pick off the Metang. And, I mean, really, it's just here. He's trying to force us to boom. He really needs this dumb Glalie to boom because it's going to keep just being an issue. We see Shadow Ball revealed from his Glalie too. It doesn't really say that it's offensive or not. I'd have to run this calc, and I just don't have it on hand right now. As Bughouse goes for agility, unfortunately Tropius is a Mon that exists on this team. So Agility Chan probably not beating it, and presumably he doesn't even have Rock Slide since he switched. Now we see FE though trying to claw himself back in. He does stay in 1 turn, predicting Shadow Ball probably comes out immediately to catch a Haunter. Gets the explosion turn right though, so he's able to get rid of that Glalie. It was a huge limiter. Tropius maybe has some outside chance now of doing something. It's kind of contingent though on what this Kecleon chooses to do. And yeah, the T-Wave is kind of the first step of ensuring a victory. Enen gets really angry, goes for frustration to Tropius. The funny part here is, unfortunately, because of color change, he loses stab now. So his frustration is 31 now. Very, very low damage. But it ends up being balanced out because this Kecleon is, I guess, just the best trained Kecleon ever. And he gets some very, very good paralysis luck. And yeah, Synthesis Tropius just, it's not going to actually win the game. He gets crit there. I don't think it actually mattered that much because this would have long-term been able to win. So now it's Haunter versus the world. And there's Eradicate, so it will just be dying to Shadow Ball. Yeah. So Bughouse able to take game 2. Now we go to game 3, and the end sequence of this game, I had to look at for like a good 10 to 15 minutes to derive any sort of understanding, because I just felt like one play set off just such an utter confusion in my head. It was just very, very curious what one of these players did. It's not even that it was a bad play, it's more I was just like, wait, why did they go for that? Didn't that give the other person win chance? We'll talk about it a little bit. So, once again, there's no lead. There's no team preview, but there is lead. We see another Hitmonchan lead out of FV, going back to what got him game 1, baby. And we see Bughouse lead with a Wailord, because, hey, man, he just won using a Wailord. Why not use it again? So this guy uppercut, it immediate boom. And now that's a very interesting play. Because there's a couple things going on there that might be why he boomed, right? So, one of them, if he is willing to take an explosion, turn 1 on Chan, there could be Eradicate in the back. It could be, again, Pupitar in the back. It could be, I mean, hell, it could be Kingler in the back. Maybe you've got just double water. Which also could mean there's a Huntail in the back for his team, right? But we talk about this other monster because, again, he's clearly content to get rid of the Mach Puncher. Alternatively, more on the Huntail idea, right? He self-destructs immediately. Maybe he's predicting the opponent to go for his water type switch in. And by booming immediately, you end up getting rid of that, and that would help support a Huntail quite a lot. So, once again, a very aggressive play, but it's generally kind of safe to go for there, outside of just the risk of... I'm going to pause again, I apologize for that. But outside of the risk of Maybe they go to a ghost. They're never going to do that, though. They're not going to go to a steel probably either because it's a Wailord. Like, if I Hydro Pump you, you're getting 2-shot with your Metang. I'm sorry, but it's true. And yeah, Glalie not taking chip on the Metang kind of makes me think that instead of a Spike, if he wants chip on Metang, it tells me that he definitely has a normal type in the back. So Raticate to me is like a guarantee, as he ends up being Lumberry on that. But it just, the way Bughouse is playing with his Mons, it kind of helps you understand what's going on. As you see, too, he's just got a very offense-heavy team. Raticate's very common on offense. So, there you go. This ends up being agility. He ends up just quaking twice instead of booming, which, kind of greedy, but I think he wanted to not waste his Mon if he didn't have to. Haunter now comes out here. He goes for a T-Bolt. Wailord ends up living it just on a smidgen of HP, but the Haunter ends up taking very little from it. I suppose he's able to T-Bolt. The Glalie now comes out here, and we do see that Raticate revealed. We see all the setup. Again, the chip on the Metang, trying to help out Rat, and just getting rid of the Mach Puncher so that this thing's speed tier could be generally uncontested. As the Glalie goes for a light screen, we also saw with the Lumberry, I mean, this one's kind of designed to hold back Blossom. Oh, what just happened there? Anyhow, Sableye comes out. Hey, can I press play? Thank you. On the double edge, unfortunately for Bughouse, yeah, this Mon is not going to be getting beat. Good in there, good stay in there, going for Shadow Ball, because you end up not letting Blossom take chip, but now the Seismics are coming out. Now, I think here, I might have considered going Blossom. It's not the best sequence, but you could have at least maybe kept Raticate around just in case you need the speed for later. And if you go Blossom there, okay, so you see he was forced into synthesizing, recovering, and the light screen went away, so Blossom would have been able to finally get a Sleep Powder off, actually have it do something. And I just think you're in a bit better of a spot that way if you retain the Raticate. But he ends up just deciding, it's okay, I can sack the Rat here. This lets me get in Blossom now for completely free. He must just like keeping it at more HP, but again, I think he could have gotten it in for basically free anyway, right? So Sending Day goes up. Metang is actually like in range of an HP fire there. So we do see the Huntail come out, trying to waste some turns. And we do see Bughouse make the right play here as well. Solar Beaming on the Huntail. He does not get too antsy, going for like HP fires, trying to get, you know, like, oh, he's gonna keep dodging around. Now this was like the one turn I didn't get too much. This is what like confused me for a while, because I'm like, booming on the Hunter felt so pointless to me. It's not like this is stall, right? This is just more like a balance angle. The problem is you see a set here. There's just a good shot he couldn't hit Blossom with anything. Hey, you probably should be Shadow Ball last, because being walled by Haunter is kind of cringe. And of course, Blossom would also be a lot harder with EQ, but I do think there's a good shot he was just EQ last. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with that. But the boom, I just remember getting so confused because I'm like, wait, but he always has to, because in my head, right, he has to preserve the Blossom. So why boom? Like, he's never going to stay in here. Maybe you think it's like so obvious he can't win without Blossom that he's always going to stay in then as a result to make that like super aggressive play because he has to make something like aggressive work out to win. I think odds are he probably just didn't have a way to hit it anyway. I think maybe he didn't like something about the light screen sequence, because I probably would have just stayed and gone for light screen. If you run the calcs, fully special defensive Glalie, which I think with Lumberry, he probably wasn't that bulky, but it takes the HP fire anyway. So, I mean, you could stay in for like one turn, see what he's trying to do, and you're okay because you can switch to the next turn, right? So, like, what he could have done maybe is stayed in with Glalie, gone for a light screen. If he goes for Sleep Powder, it's okay because you go like Sableye maybe the next turn and it's okay. Because you're losing the Sun, so Sableye doesn't actually care, and you can get like the Toxic going on this. And I think between these last three should be able to win. Although maybe Toxic on this doesn't actually save you. There's that chance too. All that to say, the sequence confused me quite a bit. I think it was made because FB at the end of the day knew he won. I think that's just really the reality of it. He couldn't hit the Blossom anyway. He didn't feel convinced by taking the line with light screen, and he felt like he won anyway. You see HP Fire under Sun doing very little to Sableye. T-Bolt would have done even less. T-Bolt's what, 95 power? Hidden power fire under the sun is like 105. T-Bolt only does like 33-ish or so, 35-ish. So now, the Hunter taken down by the Sableye. And now we see the Metang get the sleep. Metang's still asleep after a sunny day. And this could have gotten a little bit bad, but he does get average sleep luck, and he booms. So, what's the lesson from here? Well, if he didn't get, like, average sleep luck, because sleep turns in ADV are a little funky, he could have still been asleep there. He probably lost. This was probably in Solar Beam range. And even if it wasn't, then the Blossom's going to be able to keep it going for crits. And also, he always will be faster than the Sableye, so we could always get a sleep powder just off once the sun runs out, set the sun back, and then you have to hope for an early sleep, so that, or not an early sleep, an early wake up, so you can get a Toxic off and then, like, hopefully stall this out. You have to hope you get, like, the Toxic, basically, always on the turn that sleep's being set, because otherwise you really don't have a turn that you can go for it. This mon's forced into spamming Recover on those turns that it is tanking Solar Beam, because it just does too much. But yeah, I mean, like we talked about, I think really at the end of the day, I think this boom turn came out just because he didn't have a better move to go for. I think he probably was something like EQ last instead of Shadow Ball or even an Ice Stab. And he went for boom because, I mean, it would have caught the Blossom if it stayed in. And I mean, he just seeds no free turn to Haunter, which even then I don't think matters. I think he just goes Sableye and attack, but I don't know. I think I would have played it a little differently, but it is what it is. This mon was definitely a problem at this stage of the game, and it doesn't like shock me that he was willing to play for, like, maybe he HP fires hoping for a crit, or maybe he sleep powders and misses, and then I can just kill this. So I think it was still a fair play, but I want to say that he could have played it a little bit better. I think going Metang was probably the better play there. As you go Metang, and then you probably go back to Glalie, and I think it's a little bit better. You could force some stuff more cleanly. Get Sableye in again, like when the Haunter's forced out. All that to say, I hope y'all enjoyed. I love ADV NU. It's not the easiest gen to get into, because I feel like no team preview gen, those metas are always kind of difficult since you have to learn. It's kind of like how with Gen 9, you gotta learn the Terra stuff. You gotta learn the lead matchups. EVing is also typically, like, way more optimized, so there's a lot more room to do stuff with there. But overall, I mean, it's very, very fun. Even if it's maybe got a harsher learning curve, I think it's always worth it. So I'd recommend it if you want to get into a tier, but I'll stop selling on it for now. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.